Shalom, this is Levi Shore. Welcome back to Sweet and Good Torah. All right, we have an incredible Parsha Vayigash, and we're going to see something incredible. We're going to see Yehudah coming close to Yosef, but it's even more miraculous than that because we're going to see that this is a hint. This is a hint in the relationship in the future, maybe soon, of Mashiach ben David and Mashiach ben Yosef. We're going to see this incredible thing. All right, so Parsha Miketz, it left us with a cliffhanger. So Yosef is now, he's the viceroy of Egypt, and he's pretending to be this cruel Egyptian sorcerer. And he holds up this gavia, the silver goblet, and he brings all his 11 brothers together, and he knows everything about the family. He knows everything about the family because he's really Yosef, he's their brother. But he's claiming he's the sorcerer, and he's like, Yehudah, you sit at the head of the table because you're the melech, you're the king. And Reuven, you're the Bechor, you're the firstborn, and then Shimon after him, and then Levi after him, and then finally Binyamin. He also has, he has no brother, so he'll sit next to me. So he knows everything about the brothers, and he's pretending this all through divination, but it's really because he's really Yosef, he's their brother. So what he does is he plants the gavia, he plants the silver goblet in Binyamin's bag, and then he says that the person whose bag he finds the goblet in will be a slave. And this is all to get the brothers to do teshuvah, to get them to make up for their past, avera, the sin of the mechiras Yosef, of selling Yosef. And he's going to help the brothers elevate and purify and misakein, fix the mistakes they've made in the past. So what's incredible, so the Parsha starts, it says, Vayigash elav Yehudah. And Yehudah, Vayigash, is bringing close. He comes close to him. He comes close to Yosef. So what is this saying? And why is the Torah saying this? So if we go back a little bit in Parsha Vayeshev, we see that Yehudah, the Midrash tells us, was the one that said to his brothers, he said, Lechu v'nim karenu liyishmaelim. It was actually Yehudah that had the idea of the Mechiras Yosef. He had the idea to sell Joseph, their brother, to the Yishmaelim, to the Arab merchants that were coming by. Then it says, Vayishma'u echav, and his brothers listen. So it shows us that Yehudah had the status of a melech. He had the status of the king, and all the rest of the brothers listened to him. But after the sale, and after they dip, it's a machlokas, was it the precious, tunic that their father Yaakov had got, the tunic of many colors. Was it Gatonis Pasim, or was it just an undergarment? Was it the tzitzi? What was it? What was the garment? But they dipped it in blood and they showed it to their father Yaakov, and he said, do you recognize this? And it says, and they were saying that Yosef was torn up by wild animals. Now after this, they saw how it broke their father's heart. It broke Yaakov's heart, and he became depressed, and he started mourning for Yosef. And then they saw that Yehudah wasn't fit to be king. So it says Yehudah went down to Timnah, and he marries the daughter of Bat-shua, this merchant. And Yehudah kind of falls from his greatness. He was the melech of the brothers, and he falls through the greatness. Now, we're going to see something fascinating. In the Haftorah for Parsha Vayigash, it's from Yechezkel, it's Ezekiel, it's chapter 37, it's Pasuk 19, verse 19. And it says something incredible. The Haftorah tells us, says, my Lord Hashem Elokim. He says, Hine, behold, get ready, something great. Listen to what I'm saying. And he says, I will take the eights. Now, the eights, I've seen it translated as, in the Art Scrolls, translated as wooden tablet. But the simple meaning of eights is a tree. And I wonder in some ways if there's a mystery about the genealogy of the two kings. But it says, take the eights, take the tree of Yosef, which is in Ephraim's hand, meaning that the kings that came from Ephraim, the kings that came from Yosef, were through his son Ephraim. So we see the first king, Yeshua ben Nun, Joshua. He's the student of Moshe Rabbeinu, of Moses, and he becomes the king, and he's the general in charge of the conquest of the land of Israel, the first time we come into Israel as a nation. And then later we see the line of Yeravam ben Nevat, who's also from Ephraim through Yosef. So we see the kings of Yosef are through his son Ephraim. So it says, take the tree of Yosef, which is in Ephraim's hand, and the tribes of Yisrael. So Shivtei Yisrael, the tribes of Israel, and his friends. And will place them together with the eights of Yehudah, and I will make them le'etz echad. I will make them one tree or one wooden tablet, and they will become one in my hand. So this is talking about the future unification of Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David, and it's going to heal the rift, the ancient rift of kings, because there was David HaMelech. Well, the kingship begins with Shaul HaMelech, who's from Binyamin, from the tribe of Benjamin. We'll talk about the significance of that and why they're fighting over Binyamin, why they're fighting over Benjamin. And then the next king is David HaMelech, and then King David, and then his son Shlomo HaMelech, and King Solomon, he builds the Beis HaMikdash, he builds the temple, and then Shlomo's son, King Solomon's son, was Rechavam. Now, in the days of Rechavam, there's a split in the Jewish people, in the Jewish nation. And that's when we see the rise of who we talked about before, Yeravam ben Nevat, and he's from the tribe of Ephraim. And now there's a split. So now there's a kingdom of Yehudah, which is, I think, the tribes of mainly Yehudah and Binyamin. Now, the tribes of Shimon were living in the territory of Yehudah, so maybe, but we talk about the 10 tribes that were exiled, so then it seems like the 10 tribes go up to Yeravam ben Nevat, and they're under control of Yosef. And then Levi, the tribe of Levi, they're the Kohanim, they serve in the Beis HaMikdash, they serve in the temple. And there's also cities of Levium that were spread throughout the whole Jewish people. So there's an interesting state of how before they become king, they're in this state, and we say this in the Hallel. We say, "Even masu abonim haisa l'rosh pina," the stone that was despised by the builders. And who are the builders? The builders are the Talmidei Hachamim, the Torah scholars. But the stone, not only just hated, but completely despised. I mean, not only rejected, but despised, hated. But this becomes the cornerstone. And we see this with both Yosef, with Joseph, and we see it with Yehudah, with Judah. That before they actually become king, they're both rejected. They're both rejected by their brothers. They're rejected by the other tribes of Israel. So we see it with Yosef. Yosef has the dream. He has the dream that the 11 sheaves of wheat, his brothers are all going to bow down to him, and he's going to become king, and the brothers hate him. And we see, as we said before, Yehudah and the brothers, they actually sell him into slavery to the Ishmaelim, to the Arabs. And we see he goes down and he becomes a slave in Mitzrayim, a slave in Egypt. So he's lowered. At first, he's in that state of being hated. But then he rises up, he interprets the dream of Paro, the Pharaoh, and he becomes the viceroy, he becomes the Melech in Mitzrayim, in Egypt. And we see the same thing with Yehudah. After Yehudah says to sell Yosef into slavery, and they see how it broke Yaakov, it broke their father, and now they reject Yehudah. And Yehudah goes away, and he's rejected. But now, in Parsha Vayigash, we see the rise of Yehudah again. We see the greatness of Yehudah. He's becoming the king again. We see the greatness that will be the Beis David, the house of David, the great kings of Yehudah. And it's this quality, and we see it first with Tamar. He has to embarrass himself publicly. He has to admit that he did this lowly act when he thought Tamar was a Zona, a woman of the evening. But through that holiness, Mashiach through that seemingly, it's like the Aver L'Shem Shemayim, it's a sin done for the sake of heaven, through that seemingly lowly act. But the greatness of Yehudah is he can admit in public, I did it. I did this Aver. I did this lowly thing. I will admit it. Tamar, you are righteous. You are correct. You're the Tzedekis. I admit that I was wrong. And the ability to admit we're wrong in public, it's a very hard thing. See, many politicians, they'll just lie and lie and lie, and they just won't say, I did it. It's a great quality. It's the quality of a melech, the quality of a king to be able to do this. Now, here we see that Yehudah is starting to rise to greatness again because he can admit publicly, that he was wrong to Tamar, and he can admit that he was wrong in the sale of Yosef, and how he's proven that, how he's doing teshuvah, is he's fighting for Rachel's other son, for Rachel's other son, Binyamin, for Benjamin. And now he's standing up and he's willing to sacrifice his own Olam Haba, his own share in the world to come, to redeem Binyamin from slavery. He sold Yosef into slavery, but now he's going He's going to save Yosef's brother Binyamin from slavery. And we start to see that great quality of a king, of a Jewish king. Now, where we are in Jewish history right now is we're in this period of Eben Masu Aboni. Like, right, Hashem hasn't sent Mashiach ben Yosef yet, hasn't sent Mashiach ben David. And we're in this period of where we're, in a sense, we're rejecting Mashiach. I mean, it's crazy, but like most of the Jewish people really, not sure if they really know, like, from the Torah, like the whole qualities and concept of Mashiach, or if they even want Mashiach right now. Like I didn't grow up religious. I went to public school, like many of us, and I went to university. I went to Emory University of Miami. And it was like, and these concepts were, in some ways, were kind of like foreign concepts to me until I had the opportunity to go to yeshiva. And I think for most of the Jewish people, right, unfortunately, like, I don't know how much of us even want Mashiach. And then, scary enough, even in the yeshiva world, I hear this idea, like, there's some people that's like, oh, well, we have everything we need. We have the yeshivas, we have the shuls, we have kosher food, beautiful kosher markets. Yeah, chas v'shalom, like, almost we don't need Mashiach. But I think, like, Hashem is starting to send the spark. He's starting to wake us up. And I think the massacre, the Nazi atrocities committed on Simchas Torah, on Shabbos in Eretz Yisrael, on October the 7th, began to jar us, began to wake us up that, like, wait, we're in Gullus, we're in exile. We need Hashem. We need Hashem to send Mashiach ben Yosef. We need Hashem to send Mashiach ben David. And I think there's starting to be an awakening. But we see right now that, like, in Israel, there's a secular government. Like, oh, and they're claiming, like, oh, we don't need a gula, we don't need redemption, the exile's over. But Hashem's showing the exile's not really over, and it's scary. There's a secular government in Israel, even though there is religious parties, but the most powerful parties are the secular religious parties in Eretz Yisrael, in the land of Kedusha, in the land where the air is said to be filled with Kedusha, filled with holiness, where the Beis HaMikdash stood and will stand again. It's just scary. And they set up secular schools to teach Jewish children in Eretz Yisrael, in the land of Israel, teaching them everything but the Torah. It's crazy. And here in America, we see it. We see the leaders of the Jewish people. They're also secular. We see, like, Chuck Schumer. He's the majority leader of the Senate. It's a very powerful position. We see Anthony Blinken. He's the actual Secretary of State. Two Jewish people, in very high positions. There's many others, but in very high positions. I mean, like, I think it's Alana Kagan. Like, I don't know if I'm pronouncing her first name correctly, but she's a Supreme Court justice, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg was a Supreme Court justice. I mean, Jewish people have risen to high positions, but in this secular government. And we see that where, Israel is under attack from not just Hamas, but like Hezbollah is threatening to invade from the northern border of Lebanon, and we see Iran orchestrating it all with their proxy armies, and their armies are in Syria, and they're encouraging the Houthis to shoot missiles, and then they're threatening to block off trade, and the sea lanes in the Red Sea, and the Strait of Hormuz, and they're disrupting international commerce right now, and you see Chuck Schumer in this high position, and Anthony Blinken's the Secretary of State. They could affect major U.S. policy to immediately help Israel, but we see all this pressure to save Hamas, to save the Yishmaelim, the same Yishmaelim that Yosef was sold to. And just instead of supporting and using their influence to help the Jewish people, they're almost against and handicapping the Jewish people. It's crazy to see this. We need Hashem. We see how hard a time the IDF are having rescuing the hostages. We need Hashem's help. We need Mashiach. Okay, so what are these qualities that Mashiach ben Yosef is going to have? So we see one of the main qualities we learn from Yosef. Yosef's name, it means a sifa, gathering together. So one of the main things that Mashiach ben Yosef is going to do is he's going to put out the call to Jews from all around the world, and he's going to open up our hearts again and bring us all back to Eretz Yisrael. And there'll be a melech there, not anymore a secular government, but a melech, and set up a Sanhedrin, and we'll all get to learn Torah again. We'll learn the beauty and the sweetness of the Torah's Chaim, the blueprint of life, the blueprint of creation itself, the blueprint of the universe. and how precious and how important the Torah is, and the beautiful mitzvos that elevate us and will elevate us as a nation. And one day, Bezrat Hashem, we'll see, will elevate the world, and then we'll see the swords turned into plowshares. Instead of billions of dollars for military endeavors, it'll be billions, trillions of dollars for agricultural, feeding the world, living in shalom, living in peace. And then what's the quality of Yehudah, of Mashiach ben David? It's the quality to bring a Yehudah, to unite us all, to bring us back together into one people again, to be an Am Echad, to be one people again. And in Yehudah's name is actually the holy name of Hashem, the holy name of Yud He Vav He will be united again with Hashem, with Hashem's name. And how's Mashiach ben David going to do this? With Hod, also in his name, with empathy, the Sephira of empathy. He won't even need to raise his voice. It says like Mashiach will have this special koach, this special power. He'll be able to smell, the only one of our senses that was unblemished by the chet of Adam Arishon, by the sin of Adam and Chava, Adam and Eve eating from the Eitz Das Tovara, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, unblemished, and he'll be able to actually smell like Tov, Ra, who's good, who's not. What does a person need to fix themselves, to masaking themselves, to come closer to Hashem, and he'll be able to help us. And they'll both teach us the Torah. And these are the qualities, of a Jewish king. So what were they fighting over? What is Yosef and Yehudah? What are they fighting over? They're fighting over Binyamin. Yosef wants to push Yehudah to stand up and save Binyamin. And then Yehudah rises into the power of a melech again, a king. And what is so important about Binyamin? It says Binyamin was only the 4 people that never committed an avera in their life. They never sinned. I mean, we can pretend, we've never done an avera, but I think we all know it's a constant battle at the Yetzer Hara, trying to do mitzvahs. Some of us don't even know so much about the mitzvahs. And it's a constant battle, and unfortunately, sometimes we fall. But a tzaddik, he falls 7 times, but he gets up. We got to just keep fighting, getting up. Okay, so we're at a low point in Jewish history. There's not so much knowledge, of the Torah like there used to be in prior generations. It's Yeridos Adoros, the spiritual decline of each generation. But that spark is growing brighter and brighter and brighter. The Ramchal, he said something amazing. I think it's safer. I think it's called Ma'amre Geula. I apologize if I'm not getting it correct, but he said something incredible. He said there was going to be a point where Hashem would close the windows of Shemayim. So all the spiritual light would be cut off for a moment. And I think, unfortunately, that moment we saw. That moment was the 12 years where Amalek ruled in Europe, where the evil Nazis ruled, and it was the darkest time in all of world history. But then something incredible. The Ramchal says. He says that after Hashem shuts those windows, he starts to open up the main gate. And at first it's just a little light, but the gate's going up and up and up. And then more and more light is starting to pour out until that gate's fully open. And then we'll see the coming of Mashiach ben David and Mashiach ben Yosef. But the spiritual light's getting greater. We saw in 1948, after the Second World War, that millions of Jews returned to Eretz Yisrael. And we started to see the Baal Teshuvah movement, where even though Jews have grown up secular, it's starting to return to Torah. And there's more of awakening of returning to the Torah Kodesh and the mitzvos. It's happening. And then the light's getting brighter and brighter, and the gate's getting higher and higher until Hashem finally sends Mashiach. And then finally, we will get to see the miraculous thing. We say it every day in the davening at the end of Pasukei de Zimra. We say, V'alu Moshiim b'har Tzion, lish podes har Esav, v'haisa laHashem hamalucha. I think it's from the Nevuah, the prophecy of Avadia. And it says, and the Moshiim, the saviors, who is that? Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David. They will go up to the Har Tzion. What's the Har Tzion? It's the Har Abayas. It's the Temple Mount. It's where the temple stood. And they're going to judge Har Esav. They're going to judge like the secular, the godlessness of the Western powers, the Western superpowers. V'haisa laHashem hamalucha. And then what's the Jewish king do? The Jewish kings, they return the kingship. They return the Malchus. They return the Malchus to Hashem, who's the rightful king, the Melech HaOlam, the king of the universe, the creator of the universe, the rightful king. But then, V'hai Hashem l'melech kol haaretz, and then Hashem will be the infinite being, the infinite creator, the one who deserves the kingship, whose kingship really is him. He created kingship, and then the kingship will return to him, and Hashem will be king over all the world. And then Bayomahu, Yihyeh Hashem Echad, and then the holy name of Hashem, the holy name of Yud He Vav He will be one, and people will have a clarity of the oneness of the infinite creator, and they will see that there's no other. There's just one God, one infinite being that runs the world, Ushemo Echad, and his holy name, Yud He Vav He, will be unified, and people will no longer make the mistake to worship anything else in the world, only Hashem himself, and then the whole world will be connected to the real king, the Melech HaOlam, the king of the universe, Hashem. Okay, may we see this soon. May we see the gate open wider and wider, and we see the light of Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David. May we all be brought back to Eretz Yisrael, to the holy land of Israel, and may we see the days where this rebuilding of the Beis HaMikdash, the third temple, and the Shekinah of Hashem, the Shekinah of Hashem itself, sits again upon the Ark HaKodesh, the Ark of the Covenant, in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, in the Holy of Holies. May it be soon, and I hope to see you back again soon on Sweet and Good Torah.